Hey chat. What's up? Star, Wahoo, Hilla, Afton, Spotla, Roxer, Liz, Celia, thank you for the sub. Yeah. Mild mannered parent, yeah. Welcome in. Dating star sign. Nicholas, what's up? Nola. Hello everyone. Happy belated 4th of July. Am I quiet? How are we now? Loud and clear. Okay. Well, that was probably because I had to take my mic on the road. um I left after work last Wednesday to go visit a friend and get up to some shenanigans. Uh, and we're going to cover said shenanigans today. Um, but I think my gain probably got messed up after I shoved it in my suitcase. Eeny weeny Pezos. Oh. Yeah, shenanigans. Nature shenanigans, you know. We did not get up to any traditional 4th of July shenanigans. In fact, I drove back and basically did nothing on the actual 4th. But we had off Thursday, Friday, and today. So we had like a 5-day weekend for the 4th, which was so nice. Uh and that meant that I was able to get out and like do stuff without having to compete with uh all of the people that are like normally off during the weekend. So we had a couple days to chill out and relax, and we got to make the most of this trip. We got some good stuff. Not not all bug related. We will move into some bugs later. But this is like the nature review segment where I show you pictures of the cool things that we found. No birds this time, Granola. We did see a couple, but no good pictures. We got a lot of water stuff this. So a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I drove back to Pennsylvania and I had picked up a bunch of like fishing stuff from my grandfather. And months before that, right around like Memorial Day, um I tried crabbing, and we did not get any crabs, but we did get the puffer emote out of that because we just kept catching pufferfish. Um, oh, thank you, Woobly. I think they're festive year round. Yeah, puffing. Excuse me, puffing. Um, yeah. So you remember I went crabbing and I didn't get any crabs. I just in fact got a ton of pufferfish. Well, this was the redemption arc from that. So same friend, my buddy Ethan, who is becoming lore on this channel. Um, we met up Thursday, and well, I drove down Wednesday after work. Like I said, I had to have my mic in the suitcase, so uh, I did chats from afar this past week. Um, but Thursday we got out to it, and we were like dead set. We're like, damn it, we're catching a crab if it kills us. So we got loaded up with all the stuff. I got to take Sally, the new car, out on her first like field adventure, etc., etc. So pretty solid start. We drove out to a pier in on the east coast of Florida, and we were all about getting crab. Crab was our main goal for this trip. And I'm going to swap over to this other view again. For those of you that are here for bug things, Calypso is right below me, so you can observe her, see what's going on down there, while we're talking about the stuff that's happening over on this side. But we will get full bug stuff later. How'd she do? She did great, Granola. She did great. I was worried about the smell, but all good. A little bit dusty, a little bit worse for wear. No, not worse for wear, but just a little bit dusty and dirty. But she did great. Um, yeah, I didn't really have much of a lead into this. We tossed out the traps, and we had our fishing rods with us as well. And so we tossed out all the traps. I got the rods rigged up because Ethan grew up in Arizona, had never really fished much before. So we had to get all of that stuff. We had to get all that stuff set up, and I was showing him how to do the knots and all that good stuff. Teeny weeny. Calypso, we have a command for her, I think. But she is my Florida carpenter ant colony. It started off as just the one queen, but now it is her entire colony right here. Calypso herself is the big one that you can see now in the center. And all of the rest of the workers there are her daughters. So this Calypso is the collective name for the entire ant colony. Which there may be some updates on this on ants too coming. Back to where the brood pot. They're freaking out there. But we set the crab traps out, which they fold up like a book. So you just let them go in the water, and when you pull them up, the sides go. And after we rigged all the things, we pulled up the crab traps, and we had a crab. Cinema. It was great. We had one, and we were like, "Damn, that's great. We have one. We've successfully beaten the skunk. We did not get zero like last time. Uh and we ended up getting quite a few more. Hey Ellie. Um Purpose of my ant colony, research, fun, genuinely curious. She's pets. Um I do have a lot of other invertebrate pets. I've got beetles and spiders and stuff downstairs, but I hadn't been much into ant keeping before. And last year, right around this time, we found Calypso, the queen, after her nuptial flight. So after she mated, hey Case, the ants are down here. We found her as a newly mated queen, put her up in a test tube, and we had the whole process of her laying her first eggs, hatching her first babies out, and everything like that. And now she's probably got like 60 or so workers. So the colony's doing quite well. Um, I have noticed that her brood pile is a little bit smaller than normal, so I don't know what that's about. But everything seems ship shape within the colony besides that, so maybe she's just slowing down a little bit for the season or what. I'm not entirely sure. Um is the whole society. Yes, Ellie. Um it can get bigger though. So she's only at like 60 right now. These colonies in the wild can be upwards of like 10,000 ants. And they won't outgrow a contained environment, but you can get them bigger and bigger. And so I would probably double her in size or double the colony before I move them into a new container, roughly. Um, but that is something that we might do later down the line. Hey Sam. Oh. Uh so we got a crab. Mission successful. We got one. We weren't looking to get just one though, because we were looking to have some crab dinner. This is an Atlantic blue crab, casual. This is a female. I will have a picture of a male later, but this is a female, and Florida does not have size restrictions on their crabs. So technically, you can just take any crab that you want. That feels like a little cheating, almost, um, and doesn't feel very sustainable to me. So going off of other state regulations, we didn't keep anything that was less than 5 inches wide from like point to point. So you measure from this little bit here to this little bit over here. Um, and yeah, no sex restrictions either. The only restriction on that is if the female actively has eggs, they have like a little sponge under there. You can't take those, but you can keep females if you want. This was our first crab. This was the one that kind of broke the ice for us. We kept this one just in case. We ended up finishing the day with like a dozen that were this size or larger, and we, as we got them, replaced the females with males where we could. We did take a couple females, but most of the ones that we ended up taking home for dinner were male. So we did actively go through it. This crab got lucky; she got to go free. But we did have her in the cooler for a little bit because she was our first crab, and if we didn't get any other crabs that day, we were gonna split eating one crab together. So this spot was like pretty okay. We got a few small fish, nothing too crazy. We caught the pufferfish um that had been plaguing us last time. We caught them this time on a rod and reel rather than in the traps. And Ethan caught the other pufferfish, the cool one that I remember telling you guys about. I do have a picture of one later because I got one out at the second spot. But we were so exposed here, and it was so hot. We were dying. We got there pretty early because the tides and everything. We checked in. We saw all that stuff. We were planning around that. Uh, I thought there was going to be some slightly more shade than there was. And by slightly more, I mean anything more than zero. So we were just out there, full sun, cooking. I had a hat on. I had my big floppy hat on, but it only comes down to like here. And I don't know if it'll show super well, but I definitely have a tan line going right here. From the hat. So we were deep in the sun, we were overheating a little bit, and we were like, you know what, we're gonna call it. Um but as I was reeling in to go to the next spot, got a fish. Not a big fish, mind you. I don't have any size scale in here, but this was like less than a foot long. This is a black sea bass, and they have to be 14 inches to keep them. This one was not anywhere close to that. So we got it down. I got my picture, tossed it back. Um, I am not really about keeping things for any reason unless you're going to eat it. Legally, we could not take this one. So I got my picture, tossed him back, swam off. It was great. We moved on to our second spot, which thankfully had a covered pavilion on it. We rolled up, there was nobody else there. And again, this was like a Thursday afternoon, so I would assume most people were at work. Um, what made it illegal? Oh, just the size, Ellie. Yeah, they have a well, not always. Uh, certain species they have to be a certain size for you to take them. So like I was just saying with the crabs, there wasn't a size limit on this particular species. It has to be 14 inches from the tip of the nose to the tip of the tail. Other fish you measure differently, and other fish you don't actually have size limits on. But for this one, it was just too small. We tossed it back. We go to the second spot. It's nice and covered. We're cooling off. It's breezy. We're there for probably like 2 hours, and we didn't get a single thing. Um, no bites on our fish things. No additional crabs. Um, not great, but we cooled off. We ate our lunch. We had our sandwiches and things like that. So we ate while we were there. Uh, but as we're walking along the parking lot to go back to the car, we look to the left. You know, down to the left is the water. Uh, look to our left. There's just a pair of sea turtles. And I am not over these yet. Sea turtles are not super rare in Florida. Um, all sea turtles are endangered, I think. These ones are green sea turtles, so they are like the most common species that we have. Um, but having never really lived anywhere else coastal before, um, this is still insane to me that these are just around. So I was giggling. I was like, "Oh my, look at the little turtles!" So they were quite fun. I don't know what they were doing. They might have been trying to mate. Because I know turtles do a lot of like facing each other when they're trying to mate. Um, I don't know what these guys are doing. Thank you for. Would have turned out all right. Oh, good, Roxers. Yeah. Oh God, I can't imagine. I feel so bad. I feel bad when I hook the little like invasive red-eared sliders. How big? Probably like I would guess their shells were probably like 2 feet long, like top to bottom. 2 feet, yeah. Yeah. And then I got another better picture of the one here with the big barnacles coming up because they do have to breathe air, right? So he came up, got his little breath. I say he. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know how to sex sea, but came up, got a breath. and I got his little head out of the water. Yeah, it's such a. I love this one. I was very excited with this photo. So those are my sea turtles. And then we move to a third spot. This third one on Google Maps looked like it had another covered pavilion. So we were like, okay, great. Uh, it's going to be covered and cool there as well. We were wrong. Instead, it was the pier like went out. There was a circle in the middle, and then it had two things on either side. So the middle was circular, but it's because there was a hole and not because there was like a roof covering. It was very strange. I don't know why they would do that. Um, but it had cooled off a little bit. It rained for maybe like 10 minutes. So that dropped it down a little bit. It was on the open side, so it was a little bit windy. Um it cooled off quite a bit, so we didn't feel as bad being like full exposed in the sun. And there we got into some new fish again. This was the first time that I had ever caught this species. This is a saltwater catfish. This is specifically a hard-headed catfish. Um, there's another catfish that we will talk about later. No, Ophelia, don't ruin my story. Damn it. um, but no, this is this is not the one. This is not the one. Um, these ones, it's okay. It's fine. We were getting there anyway. Um, I'm not mad about it. It's totally fine. But yeah, so this is the first time that I caught one of these. I pulled it up and I was like, "Oh, sick! Like catfish. This is great." Um, this was a new one. Pretty excited about that. Always um for me fishing is adding to the Pokédex. That's like mostly what I'm doing when I go fishing. I want to catch species. I don't really care about getting the biggest fish. I'm not like yeah, that's not why I want to go fishing. I would like to catch the weird stuff and also maybe stuff I can eat. So these catfish, they are edible, but apparently they don't taste very good. And that's pretty small, right? That's not like you could, but probably not worth your time to. Um, so tossed this one back, and as I was tossing this back, I just hear a puff of air coming from somewhere in the water, and I thought, given how like shallow the water was like that doesn't. mm, I don't know about that. I was like, I don't think that was a dolphin, even though we had heard the dolphins the last time we went out together, like for the first time we went crabbing. But I was like, it feels pretty shallow here. I don't think it would be a dolphin. Um, not a dolphin. Manatee. I always get dolphins are a crazy. I see a gator. Oh, granola. It's a manatee. I I can see what you're saying, but I promise it's a manatee. This is the little nose coming above the water, uh, and then the big paddle tail back here. Um, but this was cool. Manatees are also one of those things where it's just like I'm kind of giddy every time I see one. Uh, they're just special. They're so cool. Um, and this is actually the first one that I had seen since moving back. Uh, I've seen them It was a seal or sea lion coming up to be like, "Ha, ate your bait." That yeah, Ophelia. Um, yeah, so Manatee was cool. This was the first one that I'd seen since I've been back in Florida. I've obviously seen them here before. Uh, but this was exciting to see. And this was the start of the damn parade. Um, we probably saw like at least 10 different like identifiable manatees uh at this spot and probably another 10 at the place we went to the next. um they were swimming back and forth a lot or there was just like a ton of manatees. I don't know. But this was really fun. This was fun to see. And after the manatee parade went through, we got another new fish. New to me personally, not new for the trip. Oh, I forgot about my stanced up crab. Are people in that water with them? There weren't any here, Ellie. I think what most of the other people are talking about are at like the springs where they all kind of congregate for the winter. Those are places where people can be in the water with manatees, and you're not allowed to touch them, but they know that seemingly, and they can touch you. So it's a whole thing. But no, there was nobody in this part, and there's like a boat dock to the left here off screen, so it's kind of a general area where people wouldn't want to be swimming, I don't think. Just a heads up, there's an ad in about a minute, so keep an eye out for that. But this is a massive male blue crab. So this is why they're called blue crabs, because the males have these bright blue inner arms compared to the female that we had here, where there's like a little bit of blue. But this is like extreme blue. And this was also the biggest crab that we got. Point to point, it was like 7 inches long. Whoa. Siren, thank you. Thank you for 5. Oh, and there's a treasure train. Thank you for getting that. Yeah. But yeah, so this is the bluest blue crab that we got. Um, and you can see here, uh, this piece is sharp. This is like the front of what they call the apron. Oh, the can their emo. Hopefully, hopefully casual. Um, in males, it's really pointy like this. In females, it's like just kind of like a broad circle. I don't have a good comparison picture of this, but you can tell this is a male not only because of the color, but because of the pointed part of the apron here. Then here we've got his eyes, little antennae. Go along here, you've got your crab claw. So we pulled this one out. Origin story. Thank you for the follow. They they kind of blink them. They can their eye tucks down a little bit into this socket. And it's also still covered with exoskeleton. So it's not like soft and squishy like our eyeballs would be. But yeah, they can kind of pull them back in here. But he was he was staring at me because he was mad that I picked him up. Um, you might be worried about my safety here, but I'm in no danger. I've heard, and so far with my experience, it's true. If you grab them in the back by the swimmerettes, which are like the paddle shaped legs that they have in the very back, uh, apparently they can't like come around to get you. Now, I think that's probably true if you're grabbing them from the back. But I was holding him like this, and I think almost certainly if he wanted to, he could just like come down and grab my thumb with the claws. I didn't think about that in the moment. I did not get pinched, but yes, this is the bluest blue crab, and I really liked the like shiny white reflection here off of his claw and sort of the cloud in the. I thought it was a fun picture. Um. Anyway, I forgot the order of my pictures, but like I said, this next thing was a new fish for me, but not a new fish for the trip because Ethan already had one earlier at the first spot. And it's the striped furfish. So this is the second species of pufferfish that's in this area. It's a different species, or it's a different genus than the other ones, the ones that we had that we got the puffing emote out of. But this one has like actually pretty stout spines, whereas the southern pufferfish, the ones that we had last time, were kind of sandpapery. These ones are way sharper and quite a bit bigger, but he never fully puffed up. We didn't get to see him like beach ball. This was a 12-inch long fish. We had to measure the crabs, but to measure anything else, we had this like big sticker that was a ruler on the top of the cooler. So anytime we get some, we'd lay it down and just check. And yeah, this was like a 12-inch fish. Um, Pretty neat. You can't eat them. Uh, Certain species you can, like fugu in Japan, but all of the ones that we have in the U.S., I think, are toxic. So we can't have them. Um, Picking up crab molts on the beach on a field trip. The bastards grab. Scales or pigmentation? Chucky, it's pigmentation. Oh, casual. Sorry. Want to squeeze them? You wouldn't want to squeeze them, Ellie. They're so sharp. These ones are sharp at least. But yeah, this is a striped fur fish, which again, cool new find. I've never caught anything like. So we wrapped it up, 5 o'clock ish. Oh, Kabuki, thank you for the follow. We wrapped up about 5, went home, cleaned up all the crabs. It took us uh over an hour to eat all of the crabs. Um because you have to get all the meat out of all the little bits. So we're just sitting there picking at them like animals. And it took us a long time to get through all of them because we ended up getting like some pretty big ones and quite a few of them. Jasmine Jawbreaker, follow. Um, we had Ethan's roommates left to go grab something. Like they went to go pick up dinner. They came back. Ethan and I are still just like sitting there eating crabs at the table, and his roommates go, "Have you guys just been sitting here in silence eating your crabs for the last 20 minutes?" And we go, "Uh-huh. Yeah, that's exactly what we've been doing. We had been talking all day. What else was there to talk about? We just had to eat now." Ophelia, that's only a sentence that you can say. We did not throw up. Um, but we then, of course, had to plan the next day. I was planning to be there Friday as well and then come home on Saturday. We completed our mission. We got our crab feast, and we're like, "Well, what's tomorrow? What's tomorrow look like?" And like I said before, Ethan hadn't really been fishing very often. Um, and so he was like, well, "I'd kind of like to catch a fish that we could eat, like something catchable and like or something keepable." Uh, and I said, "Sure, we'll hit it hard fishing tomorrow." Um, Picked out a couple spots that we thought would be good. Got out there 9 a.m., not like super bright and early, but like early enough. And we fished around for a bit. We tried a couple of different spots. And as we were driving in to one of those spots, we had a pretty fun, a cool wildlife encounter. Push pop, sort of. This is a gopher tortoise. This is one of the Florida gopher tortoises. And it was just walking along down the road. We could see it from like pretty far away, and it was just keeping on this white line. It was very funny. Um Now gopher tortoises are protected. You're not allowed to touch them or anything like that. So we got out, we pulled ahead of it, we got out, I went, got my picture very respectfully. Um and these are also always just real cool to see. Um Arizona had desert tortoises, which are very similar to this, but growing up, I, we had box turtles, we had like kind of small things, but these are a sizable critter. Um, and he was just walking down the middle of the road, or like walking down the side, was not super happy, giving me the look of like, what are you doing here? They call gopher tortoises woobly. They dig. So they have these kind of spikes and these really beefy front arms, and they will make tunnels and push-ups uh where they dig their tunnels down in. So they spend a lot of their time underground, like a gopher. And then I did get a more ground level side eye here. Tortoise pissed. Did not like that I was here. But he kept on moving. After we got back in the car, I was like, I could see him in my rear view mirror, and he was still just like going straight down the road. Um, there was a car coming like opposite me, going on the side that the tortoise was on. Um, and that really stressed me out. But in my rearview mirror, I did see them like swerve into the other lane, like into my lane. So they went very clearly around the tortoise, which was quite nice of them. Um, but yeah, gopher tortoise, very exciting. Down in like the central part of Florida, these are not that rare. Ethan was saying during his field work he sees them like all the time, but up here where I'm at, they're not super common. This is only the third one that I have seen since moving back here last year, but always a delight to see these guys. Um, so we pulled over, we checked a couple of spots to see if there would be any good fishing, and the answer was no. We pulled over, we tried a couple spots, there was just nothing happening. There was a ton of seaweed, which is good for critters but not so good for us. Um, but we did in fact find horseshoe crab. This little guy was skirting along the bottom. Um, you know, pouring out. His tail is there. It's directly behind him right now. This is just a bad view of him, but I picked him up. Always think they're super cool. These are phenomenal. They're not as common here in the South as from what I understand it. Growing up in Pennsylvania and like being close to the Delaware and the New Jersey coasts, those are where that's where there's like thousands and thousands and thousands of them on the beach during breeding season. Um I have never seen numbers like that in the South, but um we do have them evidently. Touch that. Of course I did, Ellie. Bears and Beats. Thank you for the follow. And it's a me Renko. I love chess bird open. I love chess bird opening. Okay. Sick. Thank you for the follow. Cape Hatteras had some. Oh, okay. Cape Hatteras is great. I love that place. Gulf Coast. That makes sense. This was on the Atlantic side. So other side of Florida from that. But they look like dinos low key. They do. This is trilobites light. Um, Everyone else went extinct. These guys have just kind of been around. All horseshoe crabs look like this, and all horseshoe crabs have looked like this for like a bajillion years. Um, so this is friend of bug, not bug. Slightly differently related. You can see that there are more than 6 legs. Got 10, I believe. And maybe more than that. I don't know. They got a lot of legs. So not a bug, but sea bug adjacent. Saw a Zaboom episode or something. Gently flip them over. Yes, you should flip them over. Bring joy. That's funny. Ellie, they sort of just act like a Roomba. Um, if you flip them over, let me. If they're topside down, um, this is what they look like. Oh, this is what they look like. So they just sort of scuttle around through the sand. They use their little claws and stuff to pick at pieces of food and whatnot. Um, but also just like a Roomba, where they get stuck on stuff sometimes. they can get flipped over like this. And so they have this really long tail. It's not a stinger, not a stinger. It's just kind of like a spike. They're able to try to use that to like push against the sand to be able to help right themselves. Um, but they have a hard time with it sometimes. If they just like keep getting knocked around by waves and whatnot, it makes it hard for them. That's what Ophelia was saying. It was like if you ever see them when they're upside down and they're struggling, just very gently flip them back over so they're face down. This one I was holding, you know, on the top, and then when I put him back, of course, I did put him leg side down. Yeah, on a Cape Cod in the 80s. Hey, dog walk. Welcome in. Yeah, like I was saying, Delaware is really great for them, and New Jersey as well. Like we're Cape Cod up in that area. Um, that's Massachusetts, but up in the Northeast, there's a ton of them. Specifically in Delaware, crazy name for it, but there's a place in Delaware called Slaughter Beach that was the most horseshoe crabs I've ever seen in one place. Uh, I was there at the right time of year. It would have been like May or June, for a friend's wedding, and or for a friend's birthday, excuse me. Just looking up and down the beach, there was just the entire shoreline was horseshoe crabs. So sick, super cool. Yeah, I can see why people would maybe be a little uncomfortable with these. They're kind of weird looking, but love a good horseshoe crab. This was the first one that I think I've ever seen in Florida, so pretty exciting there. Again, we're all about new species discovery, chat. That's what Evan being in nature is about. I'm into bugs, I'm into birds, but I'll take a horseshoe crab. That's bug adjacent. I'll take a fish. Awesome. So, checking things off the list. And this next thing is also very much like that. We went back to a place that we tried crabbing last time. And we weren't crabbing this time, we were just trying to fish. But, when the fish aren't biting, the entomologists get a little bit bored. So we start flipping rocks over, of course. Um, and we found this guy, which I've never seen this before in my damn life. Who are you? What's this? Uh, According to iNaturalist, this is a green porcelain crab, but I've never seen him before. Little under a rock. Yeah. I had in my mind that this was like a was called a kelp crab. Um, but apparently not super closely related. But little porcelain crab guy. I did also get um wharf roaches. So for y'all Animal Crossing folks, wharf roaches are definitely a thing that are in the game. They are in fact not roaches, but they are a type of aquatic isopod. Um, they're technically invasive on the east coast of the U.S. Uh, but it's an isopod that's pretty sizable. And so I did grab a pair of those as well. I have those in a vial somewhere down. I didn't bring them up. For shame I forgot. But yeah, porcelain crab. Ellie, I touched that too. Yeah, I I don't recommend handling things if you don't know and you aren't sure about it. I knew that the horseshoe crab wasn't going to do anything to me. This little guy is too small to do anything to me. So, I do have a habit of picking things up, but it was fine. It was great. Sniff my arteries. He sure could have tried, Chucky. He sure could have tried. Um, and then from here, we moved on to a different spot, and we were like, if we don't get anything here, we're gonna call it. We had been fishing since 9 a.m. and it was now going on like 3 o'clock. So we were out like all day, and we didn't get anything. And we get to this new pier, and it's shady because it's like under a highway. Great, solid, love it. Um, and we were there for about an hour before anything happened. And we didn't get anything for a while. And Ethan goes, it's nice for us over here, but I'm gonna go see what happens if we throw the fishing line out in the sun. I said, yeah, yeah, you go do you. Well, first cast, he pulls up a hardhead catfish. Again, not new for the trip because I got one the day before, but that was a new fish for him, which was great. Second cast, pulls up this guy. This is a striped pigfish. It looks very similar to a pinfish, but the jowl here is a little bit deeper. And when you put the fins up, it looks a little bit different. But this was cool. This was the first time that I had ever seen this fish either. Didn't count it towards my list or anything like that. It will go on my observations list because I'm I'm holding it right now. I did not catch it, so it won't go on my like fishing trophy. But yeah, this was a cool one to check off. So this is now two casts back to back. Gets the hardhead catfish, gets this pigfish. Tosses out again. As soon as we release the pigfish, he catches another one of the big striped burrfish, so the big pokey uh puffer. Toss that back. This whole time, I'm not catching shit. I I'm sitting there. I have, and I think this was like my own stubbornness. The hooks that I had were slightly bigger than the ones that Ethan. And so I just simply had bigger bait. And the fish that we were catching, not not that big. So I wasn't catching much, probably because I think there are there were small fish in the area, but I wanted to catch a big fish, so I stayed with my bigger hooks. Anyway, Ethan gets the pigfish, Ethan gets the striped burrfish, and then he looks behind me, or he like looks over to me because I'm still trying to fish in the shade. He yells, "Hey, I got a stingray," and I'm like, "Fuck, dude, what do you mean? What do you mean you got a stingray?" I have fished for stingrays before. They are a doormat. Uh, they like suction down, bury themselves in the sand. They don't fight, they're just like dead weight. So you're like reeling them in, you're really trying to whatever. And we're on a pier right now. So we're like elevated above the water. Um leave the pier. Yes, exactly, Roxer. So that's the problem. If you're catching little fish like this, you can just bring them up. But if you're catching like stingray, you need a way to get it up on the pier, or you need to like go down to deal with it. Um, we did not have a proper pier net, but we did have one of our circular crab trap nets. Uh, and so I was like, I was reeling mine in super fast so I could uh, go over, grab the net, and like help him bring it up. But he just goes, whoop, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a little stingray, and it was pretty small. This was maybe about the size of like a dinner plate. And this is a southern stingray, which we learned. Thank you, iNaturalist. But obviously the thing here, stingrays sting. Right here, you can see the barb. So it's not the tip of the tail. It's not the tip of the tail that gets you. This part is fine. Right here is the problem area. And again, Ethan, never been fishing before in the ocean, was like, what the fuck do we do about this? And I was like, it's fine. I was like, the tail is very flexible, but here's the barb. Looking at it up here, the hook is in up here. This was after we got it out already. So I just stepped on the tail back here to keep it down. Um, and then we got the hook out. Well, then we have the problem of, okay, it's off the hook. That's great. We still got to get it back in the water though. So, uh I grabbed onto the tail. I grabbed it like at the end here. I grabbed it at the end here where the barb is not, and I then scooped up under him like this. So I'm holding tail back here, holding underside here, and then just kind of dropped it off over the side. We successfully maneuvered everything. No stings. We did not get Steve Irwin, which I saw someone make, and I will just say that's fair. I had the same thought. Steve would not want us to be mad at the stingray. So even then, uh, this guy just left. We were all good. Steve would not want you to be mad about it. So not taking it out on stingrays. Um, there were a couple of guys on the pier that yelled sort of at us for putting it back. Um, but we dropped it off anyway. Catch up. Everyone said a lot of things here. Do all stingrays sting? I don't know, Chucky. Fish are like very far removed from like things I have a ton of experience with. Uh as the name suggests, I would imagine all stingrays proper probably sting. But there are skates which are very similar. It's, a big flat cartilaginous thing. I don't think they all have stingers. I think skates are mostly okay, and they don't usually have this big whip tail that's usually more of like a thickened tail. Truthfully, don't know though. Truthfully, do not know. So I touched a stingray too. Yes, Ellie, I sure did. Why would they yell at you for putting it back? Hey, Cater. Probably because a lot of people don't like catching them because there is like a process to having to unhook them. Especially with the really big ones, a lot of people will just cut their line, which I hate for a variety of reasons. You're like leaving the hook in the animal and they rust out. Fishing hooks are made to like rust. So if it does go in the thing, um, it'll rust out. Not great. But also all the line that gets left in the ocean, awful. So, I'm unhooking this damn thing one way or the other. I'm not about any of that what was happening there. But that's why they were pissed off about it. They were just like, "Oh, we don't want to, we don't want that in there so we don't have to catch it then later." Um sort of thing. And I'm just like, kind of don't be a bitch. What are we doing here? Yeah. Yeah, it will casual for sure. So, anyway, we released the stingray. It was fine. Um it was a whole thing. And it's not like this is an invasive fish either. Uh People will do that with like carp a lot of the time. Asian carp specifically in the US are like a bad thing and they tell you not to re-release them. The same thing with like snake heads and a bunch of other things that are actually invasive. This is a native stingray. This is a native species of stingray. It has every right to be there, so like let the guys on the pier yell at me about it. It's fine. What do I give a shit? Yalba, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. So got the stingray, very cool, and we then moved over to we were like, well, Ethan's getting a ton of fish here. I'm gonna start casting out on like the sunny side, but the pier was doubled, so we were over here in the shaded one. We went over to the one that was over kind of in the full sun. Got ads coming in about a minute. Just an FYI. We moved over to the one in the full sun, and pretty quickly, Ethan catches the one fish that I was like, yes, that is my thing. I would like to catch that this weekend. And that, in fact, is the gaff top sailfin catfish. This is a very small one. So, judging by the shrimp you see here and the knife in the back here, this is maybe a 6-inch fish. It's so funny that we have these like 7-foot rods. Hey, Murray. We have these 7-foot rods and we're bringing up these like itty bitty little fish. Guy Yuna, thank you for the follow. Pixelated Sleeper, Atomic Jazz, thank you for the follows as well. Welcome in. Uh, Katie Pie, Katie Pie, thank you. Hello, hello. Um, we brought this in. This is a gaff top sail fin catfish. And this is a very small one. They can get to be like 2 feet long, 10 plus pounds sort of things. They can get pretty big. But this was the first one that we caught, or that Ethan caught, I should say. Uh, and it was very, very tiny. Tossed it back. He catches another one. It's smaller. It's a smaller one the second time. We throw that back. He catches a third one. It's smaller yet. The smallest one he caught was like 3.5 inches long, which was so funny. But this whole time, oh, is that what happened, Ellie? Thanks, Beeching. I was wondering where everybody was coming from. Um, this was like the one thing that I was like, oh, that's a cool fish. I would like to catch that one this weekend. Ethan has pulled like 7 of them out of the water at this point, and they're all this size or smaller. Uh, and so I'm like, yeah, I kind of bummed. Whatever, not really big deal. At this point, I have not caught anything on Friday. I have not caught a single fish on Friday, which is fine. I'm hanging out there with the boys. He's having a good time. We're enjoying nature, seeing new things. Not a big deal, but you know, I'm out there. I would like to catch something. That'd be kind of nice. And so time time keeps passing on. Time keeps passing on. We do see some other stuff come through. There's again a ton of manatees that show up. They're swimming all around in our area. We saw this really crazy, like 1.5 foot wide jellyfish. This is a southern moon jelly that was just like right off the dock thing where we were. Um, and uh, it starts getting late. Again, we were out all morning, we were out all afternoon, and it was going on like probably 7 p.m. We are at the end of a pier behind a restaurant. The restaurant is in fact having a cover band night where they're playing like the daddest of dad rock slash Jimmy Buffett hits. Uh, it's phenomenal. It is such a vibe out there fishing with this like live band playing at the end of the thing. Very, very cool. But there is a restaurant down there, and Ethan's like, hey, I'm gonna, I'm just gonna go check the menu, see what's up. And he's waiting up there for some food to show up. No, I lied. Back up like 10 minutes. Random Josie K fan, yes. Night, Chucky. Thanks for stopping by. Uh, so before he goes to check the menu or whatever, we run out of bait. Now, we had bought bait the day before, and we were reusing kind of like what we had from the day before, but two separate groups of people who were leaving the pier uh gave us their extra stuff. So we had like way more than we initially bought, which is super nice. And at the end of the night, when we were done and we weren't coming back the next day, we also gave it away. So there was like, it was like the sisterhood of the traveling shrimp, just passing it along to whoever was there. But we ran out of the shrimp, which is what the catfish were biting on. And so I was like, we've had these sitting here since yesterday. We haven't used them yet. I'm going to string up a hot dog. Not a full hot dog, but I'm going to cut like a little round of a hot dog, and I'm going to put it on this hook, and I'm going to see what happens. Because I know that like freshwater catfish love a shaboing boing. It's a classic catfish bait. Apparently, freshwater ones also really like marshmallows. I've never done that, but anyway, I cut this little slice of hot dog. I throw it out. First cast, I catch a damn fish. The first cast with the hot dog, I got the fish that I wanted. I got the catfish. It was not very big. It was still like kind of in the 6 inch range or whatever. But a catfish likes a hot dog. And I was like, hey, we're gonna be here a while now because I've now got my catching wind in me. So that's when Ethan like left um to go get snacks or whatever from the restaurant. While he's gone, a guy at the end of the pier, not in our group, but like some other guy that was out there fishing, he hooks into and he brings up an actual like big catfish. Like probably 2 foot long, probably like 10 pounds, like really, really good sized catfish. And unlike the hardhead catfish, these ones apparently taste pretty good. Um, Someone I saw said that their boyfriend hated catching these. It's a very unpopular fish to catch, and I think again because there's like it's slimy, and they're just kind of annoying. But if we caught one of these that was big enough, we were definitely gonna take it. Now, unlike the black sea bass at the beginning, these catfish are what Florida calls unregulated, which means that there isn't like a minimum size that we had to hit. Um, there's not like a minimum size that you have to hit before you're able to catch it. But your limit on them for the state is 2 individuals or 100 pounds, whichever is more. So if you're catching uh like two really, really big stingrays that are like 70 pounds each, those two are your limit for the day. But if you're catching pigfish like this, hypothetically, I could catch 100 pounds of these per day. And that's not in total, that is per species. So if we got 100 pounds of pigfish, we could also then take 100 pounds of stingray and 100 pounds of these sailfin catfish. Insane. I, I don't understand how Florida's regulations work, but we do have a very healthy fishery. So I'm gonna let DNR deal with their stuff. That's their whole thing. It's fine. It's whatever. But we weren't keeping these catfish because they were small and uh it wouldn't have been worth our time to like fillet it, right? There's not that much meat on these things. Well, now Ethan is gone. He is getting his what ended up being cheese curds from the restaurant playing Jimmy Buffett covers. I toss my hot dog back out there on my line. I get a bite. And I start bringing it in, and it's definitely not as big as the one that the guy down there just got, but it is definitely the biggest one that we have caught. And I didn't really need backup. But I don't back backup. I didn't make that up. Oh, casual. Um, so uh, I'm there. I pulled it up, and the thing that I didn't mention about catfish is that here and here they have venomous spines. They're very slimy, hard to hold, but they also have spikes on their pectoral fins and their dorsal fin here that they will flail around, and if you get stabbed by them, it's apparently not great. Uh, I'm alone. Ethan is getting his cheese curds. I bring up the catfish. I slide up like you're supposed to get under the barbs and everything. I don't make it. I don't make it, chat. Uh Swings over with its right pectoral fin, gets me right in the hand. It gets me. You can see my puncture wound right here. Um it wasn't that bad. It was definitely unpleasant. It definitely burned for a while, and my arm in fact was sore the next morning. But overall, it wasn't that bad. However, that fish pissed me off now. uh that fish pissed me off, and even though it wasn't that big, I was like, you're gonna get eaten. You're going to get consumed. So I tossed him in the cooler. That was our one fish that we brought home. Um Ethan comes back with the cheese curds. I'm still sitting there like, son of a bitch, god. Uh, Pissed me off. He's like, what happened? And I said, open the cooler. And he looks, he's like, did it get you? And I said, yeah, it sure did. I complained about pain, stabbed by a catfish, kicked back in the water. Oh no, I did not. Pain, I need to go to the ER. Yeah, Marie, it wasn't that bad. So I mean, I did Google like, am I going to die sort of thing. But everything that was reading was like, yeah, it sucks, but it's not like a deadly problem. Um, so I was like, it'll be fine. If something does happen, like I start to feel way worse, we might go do something about it. But like, eh, not a huge deal. So we're sitting there, we're fishing, we're still catching more catfish. We don't get anything bigger than the one that I got that's now in our cooler. We didn't get any of the big ones like the guy at the end. Um, but we're there. We go through quite a bit of the pack of hot dog because that's the only bait we have left. It's the only bait that was working at that point. And we eventually decide to call it probably like 9:30. Um, so it's dark already at this point. And a lot of the city around us was obviously lighting off a shit ton of fireworks because it was the 3rd of July. Um, so we had like a really nice display of fireworks and everything happening all around us. My hand hurts because I've got stabbed by a catfish, but we do have a catfish in the cooler now. Um, and I am getting ready to bring in uh kind of our last casts for the night. I'm like, yeah, we have like about an hour drive back to Ethan's place. I have to fillet this damn fish tonight. I have to spray off all my line and cooler and everything because we're done fishing now. I was like, I'm gonna go. We're gonna call it for the night. We're not really catching that much. It's been a while, but we did both catch things. I got the species that I was after. I got stung by it. It was a whole thing. Well, as I'm bringing my line in some of these last few times, I start to notice something weird in the water. And this pier did not have any lights out at the end. Uh it was just people with like headlamps. Um so our area was not lit up very well. And I'm reeling it in and I'm like, that's weird. I'm like, I'm seeing all these weird flashes happening uh in the water. And then I realized what was happening. I'm going to play a little video for you, and we can go from there. So look like right here. We'll do it again. The damn ocean lights up. How about that? um this is another really cool nature thing. Uh there is like motion activated bioluminescence in the water sometimes. From my understanding, it is a like startle response with dinoflagellates and like uh jellyfish and some other things like that. What I didn't know was that the part of Florida that we were in and the time of year that we were there is like one of the best times to actually go out and see this. So the weird flashes that I was seeing as I was reeling everything in was because my line, which is what this was in the video, I was like pulling my line through the water like this. As I was reeling up, it's like my weights and my hooks and everything were agitating the water and causing it to glow. And I just thought that was so damn cool. Um, I have also seen this in New Jersey, Siren. Yeah, Siren. Um, but it was never this bright. Um, I had never seen it quite so intense. Uh, and so this was really cool, and it was something that like if the lights on the end of the pier had been on, I don't think I would have noticed it. Uh, but yeah, this was like a highlight for me. It wasn't a catch or anything like that. It was like, oh yeah, look, the ocean glows blue. I would drink. Videos can never do it justice. Yeah, Yalma, definitely. It was so intense, and I was really glad that I was able to capture it at all. Um, but no, it definitely does not do it justice with like how bright it is. But yeah, this was so sick. This was like such a cool find. Um, so we drive back, we get to his place, I hose off all my stuff, we fillet the catfish. It's not worth it. It was definitely not worth the I also will say I have not filleted a fish in probably like at least 15 years. Um so I was definitely more than a little rusty with it. But also the fish wasn't very big. I would have thrown him back had he not stabbed me. So I got my revenge fillets off of him. I did keep the fin. So the gaff top sail fin. We got back to Ethan's place and I pinned it up. The problem is, I left it at his house. So I don't have it with me at the moment, but next time I see him, I'll get my fin back. Um, and then again at this point, it's probably like 11 p.m. at this point. So we fillet the fish and then we just put it in the fridge for the next morning. Next morning we wake up, we have maybe like 2 bites of catfish because these fillets were very tiny. Um, Again, certainly not worth it. I do love a good catfish. The amount of work to fish yield on this definitely not worth what it was. Um, but the plan was then to uh we just like a little bit of butter granola, a little bit of butter and then fish. It would have been crazy to like go out of the full way to do like a deep fry sort of situation. Again, I'm talking like we both had 2 bites of this stuff. It was not a meal. It was like uh, a very light appetizer sort of situation that happened. Um, but we did have one more thing that we wanted to take care of before I left. Um, which ended up turning into 2 things. The first is this. It is not a crack pipe. Good guess though, granola. Good guess. It is a glass tube. I don't know that I would call it a straw. It's quite thin and not long enough to go down into a drink. Um, I am thinking about expanding the Evan Ant exhibit and the juice box. Good shout. Um, so Ethan works in a lab with ants, and he's the one that helped me like figure out what to do and how to set up and work with Calypso. Sarah Pearl, thank you for the follow. Um, and there is a new species of ant that I am hoping to acquire soon. Um, that's I'm gonna tease it with that, but this has something to do with it. But yes, we might have new friends here in a couple weeks. Uh, and our glass tube, I needed to go pick one of these up from his lab. So that was one thing that we had to do. The second thing, do you guys remember back in December when I went to go visit Ethan? And we had those very special weevils that were on cycad cones and like only found on cycad cones. Do we remember bellids? Do we vaguely remember this story at all? No, nobody remembers that. Okay, cool. So this is Rhopalotria, and it is a cycad weevil. So this is a different family than your typical weevils are. They only live in the cones of the Florida coontie or Zamia integrifolia. Uh, and the cones look like this. Okay, Rocksters was here. I was like, I know, we talked about this. We did a whole thing about it. But these weevils only exist in the male cones of this plant. So that weevil is endemic to Florida. The only place you can find them is in these cones. I don't fully understand how they go between seasons of like you can only ever find them on the cones, and the cones are only open like this in the winter. So in December, I went down, and these are uh threatened statewide as like a natural plant, but they are a decorative planting across like the entire damn state. Everybody uses these as decoration and as like landscaping. And so that includes universities. And the University of Central Florida has a ton of these. So Ethan and I pulled up there back in December when the cones were opening. We knocked a couple of the cones out, and we ended up getting a bunch of these weevils, which was super cool because this was a whole family of beetle that I had never collected before. Because it only exists in the US, in Florida, in this one specific plant at this one time of year. Now, there is another member of this genus. That was Rhopalotria slosoni, which is the Florida native one. This is Rhopalotria furfuracea. This one is in a different plant. Uh, this one is in um, a different cycad that also has the specific epithet of furfuracea. So these ones are only in Florida in the US, but they're in a different cycad. And that cycad is not native to Florida. It was brought up from Mexico, so these are not native to the US, but they're here now. They're in this other cycad species that has a completely separate flowering time or cone opening time than the native species. The native species are active in like December. Rhopalotria furfuracea, this plant here, or this beetle here, is only on a plant where the cones open in the middle of summer. So if you're picking up what I'm putting down, we got our glass tube from the lab, and we went out to find this plant. We knew where it had been on campus because we had located it before. And Ethan has been going back like weekly, checking to see if these cones were open. And he showed me when I got there on Wednesday night, he had a vial of them. And I was like, are some of those for me? And he said, yeah, but I figured we would go get you your own. And I said, great, that's even better. So we roll up to this little one patch of plants. There was only like 2 or 3 places on campus on INAT where we were able to find this thing. This one, pretty close by, we walked it, and only one plant over here at the very end was flowering or was like ready. And this is what the cones look like. So these are all male cones, and you can see that there's like space between all of these. These little circles here are the actual pollen bits. But the males are in here. It does look like corn. It very much looks like corn. But all of this yellow separation between the different cones, that's the pollen that the males or that the beetles are feeding on. So we put this white pan down here, and I reach behind this plant and I go tap tap tap. That was it. That was all I needed. That was all I needed because we got the weevils. So I have a little vial full of them now. Um, and this is really kind of crazy to think about that there is an entire family in the United States that I now have all of the species of. There are a couple of others that are only have like one, but um, yeah, with getting these now, I now have all of the bellids that are known to occur in the US. And I think that's super sick. That was the last of the travel story. I grabbed these weevils and I said, peace out, and I drove home. So our next step, now that we're done with photo montage, is going to be pinning up some of these weevils. So they're in a little dish of ethanol right now. I'm going to pull them out onto a paper towel so they can dry off a bit, and then we will point mount some of these guys up. I don't know how many I got. I just kind of grabbed everything that was there. 3, 4, 6, 7. $14, and we'll go. Orb weevils. Oh yeah, Yalma. You've not been here before. We've got the whole setup going. Flumgoon. Morbid question. How to dispatch vessels before collecting? Very valid question. Not super morbid. These ones went straight into a vial of ethanol. And that's typically what I do for things in the field. Um, it preserves them really well. They aren't like able to decompose or rot. Not that these would rot in like the 2 hours that I have to drive back home. Um, but in general, this is a good way to keep them because high enough alcohol, which these were, um, also preserves DNA. So if I wanted to sequence these at all, I could. I don't really work on wheels. I don't really have a reason to do that, so I'm not going to. Um, but yes, these went in ethanol, and that is generally my preferred field method as well. I have this is a tube of stuff from Kansas when I went a couple weeks ago that I need to work on still. Um, but you can do alcohol, You can do fumes of some sort. So there are chemicals like ethyl acetate or even cyanide, but I don't really mess around with that. That you can put them into like pill jars where they get overwhelmed by the gas fumes and do that. Or freezing them is also a really good way to do it. Um, yeah, I don't think it's really that morbid of a question. It's a thing that I know is going to come up because we do this on this channel sometimes. And is like maybe the part of entomology that people aren't aware of yet. So perfectly valid question. Um, yeah, alcohol. Putting a cup of gas. Yeah, in in theory similar. In theory similar. So since these were quite small and a lot of them mostly dry, we're just gonna pat these a little bit on the top, and then otherwise we should be ready to pin them up. So we'll just take these three to start so we can look at the process a bit. Um, we've definitely done this on here before, but it's been a while, I think, before we mounted much. Um, I'm being bad, and the stuff that we did last time, I think, was the stuff that I got in Portland with Trudy and Lucas, which I still have here on the spreading board. These little guys. So I need to get these off. I need to take care of them, put real labels on them. Is it more helpful for the lecture to be open when dead, or is it better to do it manually? Uh, it's bad. um, so with something like this, that's really tiny. I mean, these are like 4 millimeters, kind of at the best. These are relatively small critters, and so having their wings open or not isn't going to affect anything. Aesthetically, I don't care for it. But something like a big Hercules beetle or like a big scarab, if you open the wings, you are really severely limiting the amount of space you have for uh putting stuff in the collection. And so if something like this dries with its or uh dies with its wings open, I might try to close them up, but since we have multiple representatives, I might just pin them or point them with them open. But in general, I don't want the elytra open when doing this. So these three are where we're going to start. And we can tell that right here we have two females and a male. Uh, you can probably imagine which one the male is. This guy here got his big old buff arms. You can really see it when you turn him to the side. how big his front legs are. He is a very, very nice looking specimen. Um, and what we're going to do is we are going to flip them on their back with their heads towards us. So, facing me at the microscope. And just sort of generally have them here in a line. Thanks, Marie. Swolest. Um, so they're going to be head down, facing me. And then we have these little paper triangles. This that I cut out of our special label paper using the point punch. So it's just a hole puncher that makes triangles rather than circles. And we do this because there are certain insects that are going to be too small to actually put a pin through. So this is putting it kind of in the same frame here. This is the normal size pin that we use for most insects. And if I were to try to put one of those weevils on this pin, my weevil is going to be completely destroyed. It's going to be gone. It's not going to be worth anything. So what we do instead is we do what is called pointing. So we take these little paper triangles or these little paper points, and we do the very highly scientific thing of attaching them to the point with Elmer's glue. Do I have tiny scales for photos? I do have a hmm. So this is a little metal ruler. Um, this is generally good enough for the pictures and things like that. So this one, uh, we lay it here, butt it to 10. This is like butt to tip, like 4 millimeters long. So it kind of gives you a sense of scale of what these things are. And if I put the pin back in here, you can just see like how much of that bug that pin would take up. And so we're not going to do that. We're going to attach them to these little triangles with glue. And then we put the pin through the point instead. All arranged down here. And my next step, and this is not what everybody does, but this is the Evan method, and you guys are on my stream, not theirs. I just take tiny Elmer's glue, not a sponsor, and I put a little dab of it on my thumbnail, on my left hand. So now I have glue on my thumb. And then I take these little paper triangles and I bend them. So I will bend them like this. Kind of hard to see, but there's like a step in it now. And then I will Get my little dab of glue. And we tend to go between the second and third pair of legs. So right here in the middle, we just pop that on. And now he's attached. Be sick if I was sponsored by Elmer's. Yeah. I could maybe dethrone Maya as like the glue fluencer, you know? I would show up on Google before Maya. Two different weevils inhabit the same plant cones at different times of the year. It's different plants, but they're doing the same thing. They live in the cones, but it's two different cycad plants. Echo Wolf, thank you for the follow. Hey, Lyndon. Hello. Oh, dude, Ingluencer is so good. Ingluencer is so good. Slime with bug. Guys, I don't think anybody's gonna sponsor me. I don't think we're at that level yet. But so uh what the bend does, Lyndon, um, if we were to just do the normal point, I only have this like little tiny tip area to actually attach glue. And if you bend it once, so it looks like an L, you have a much flatter face that you can attach to the side of a bug. I like the double bend because now I have coverage up the side and it sort of cups it to help support underneath. But what you'll notice that we did, or rather didn't do, here with the one that we put the point on, is that point doesn't come over the midline of the body. If you're trying to identify stuff, a lot of it is underneath. And if you cover up the middle, you're going to be obscuring things on both sides. Insects are bilaterally symmetric, so you only want to ever like disturb one side, which is why we always put the pin through the right hand side of the bug. If you draw like a line down the middle, it's always through the right hand side. These are upside down, so once we flip them and put them on the pin right now, it will be glued on the right side. So if I am covering up anything on the right, I can still see it viewable on the left. And so I like that extra cup to help hold on to things. Some things don't need it. Weevils in particular can be very narrow, but also very deep. So you need more glue to hold on to it and like to keep it on the side. It is my preference to do it this way. This is how I was taught to process ant samples when I was in an ant lab in undergrad. And the thing is, so this is now mostly dry. You can see the weevil is moving with the point. Now, if I flip it over, which is the next step, you can see that the beetle is like very in line with the point. So the beetle is very, very flat. Um, and that's sort of what you want. And so the reason why I like my method of doing it on the microscope stage is because the beetle is drying flat with the point. So it just kind of keeps everything in line better, which is why I prefer to do it this way. I have gotten quite quick at this. If I wasn't yapping, I have done over 100 specimens an hour. Uh, Obviously, the yapping takes a bit of that away. Um, but you kind of get the feel for how much you need to bend the point just based on experience, and it's not really something you can teach, but I bend like 99% of all of my points. Just because I like that extra support. 3, and then we can make some adjustments because right now it's sort of just attached to the leg. We push it around a little bit more, it will up on the side, just like that. Hustain, thank you for the follow. New speedrun category. I pointed 1,000 beetles in under an hour. um, how big are these compared to say the ants and Calypso colony? Um, I would say 2 of these is probably an ant. If I had to guess. Calypso herself is probably 3 of these. Your professor taught you everything on hard mode. Oof. Yeah, that's rough. Um, it a lot of people will free they will they'll pin through the little paper first, then make their bends, and then just hold the pin and go dink 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 to glue the things to the side of the bug. That is how like most people do it, and you can be really really like absurdly fast if you do it that way. But the problem is you don't have as much control over uh like how the bug sits. And so I like and I prefer doing it this way, even though it is definitely slower. Because I just think the points end up looking, and that's worth a bitty. Yeah, stall. They're about 4 millimeters long. Uh, I can get you an American measurement in a second. On the point, just move it aside, let it dry. So now we're on the inch side. These are 30 seconds of an inch. It's an where you stack up. Thirty down. So this is like less than a quarter of an inch. Yeah, they're pretty tiny. I mean, you can. They're not only in microscope visible. Uh, see them here on my paper towel. Yeah, you can get a sense of the idea how big they are. They're they're not my smallest bug. We'll say that. They're certainly not the smallest, but they're definitely not that big. Fluffy sleeves on the front legs for they're for fighting. ADP. So those are not sleeves per se. That is just like what the leg looks like. Um, and so the males As far as we can tell, will use their front legs to kind of spar one another. Um, but we can't find a lot of good information on that and like how they fight. Um, we have a student that might start working on that. Um, there's a student looking for a research project, and we wanted to look at sex ratios of like males to females inside of these cones. And then also do some behavioral work to see like how their fights play out. Um, so maybe I will have some information for you eventually. But yeah, as far as we know right now, they just sort of like fight each other with their front leg. Nudging a single ant around for 10. Oof, that's tough. Um, Ant was the Ant Lab was my first paid entomology job. Um, I had approached my general like systematics professor about working in his lab, and I did a bunch of unpaid work in there. And that's like that's what I would like considered my home lab. But I worked in an ant lab for 2 years, keeping colonies alive and doing specimen prep. And when I showed up to start volunteering before I was paid, the professor was like, "How are your points?" And I go, "The fuck would I know?" I'm a student, and I think I did pretty well after learning it for the first time, but I don't know what your standards are. How would I know how well I do? So she had me do like a demonstration. She gave me a bunch of specimens and was like, "Yeah, mount them up." And so I did, and she took them, looked at them, and was like, and she sat there and watched me do them. And she took them from me and was like, "Yeah, these do look pretty good. Can I teach you a different method to do it? That's like a little bit faster and that's a little bit slower but more consistent and works better for ants." And I said, "Sure, I would love to learn that." And you are seeing what I learned that day. Uh Upside down and facing you, because when you flip them over to like pin the other side of the point, they're going to be right side up. So you have to do it this way, and you're always going to be doing it under a microscope. Um, some of the people that do the pinning of the paper uh before they attach the specimen, um, what the hell was the thing? I completely lost my train of thought there. Anyway, boop, bring it off. But ant thoraxes are also pretty deep in the grand scheme of things, and that's why I think she had me learn this method, because they do need that extra support of like being tucked underneath. Now these ones are a bit of a pain because the wings are open. I'm not I'm not as happy with this placement right now, just because the wing is kind of in the way. Looks a little better. We'll make it work. It is a convention thing stall. So just like we pin everything on the right hand side, we also point everything on the right hand side. Um, is there a reason we do it that way? Probably at some point. But you're kind of a freak if you do it on the left. And it's just not like the entomology convention standard to do it on the left. So like when I'm teaching entomology classes and the students glue things on the wrong side, they get points off. We do monitor it so that they're always putting it on the right hand side. Um, Historically, if somebody like would have started entomology being a left-handed person, um, it very likely could have gone the other way. But yeah, we always do all of ours on the. They're just trying to contain this guy a little bit better in terms of his wings being open. That side of the body. Is that Lapras? I didn't say banned. That's just not the standard that we conform to. I mean, the whole world is right hand preferred, yeah. There's a lot of things that are set up for right hand and probably right handers and like probably historically are because of that. Yeah, we that's why we do it this way. It's just how it always been. I'm there. I am running out of paper. Hope I have just enough to sneak 6 more points. 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. Oh, okay. The Vinky? He was a lefty. Um, Lyndon, it is not that fancy, actually. It's just slightly nicer than your normal uh your normal like printer paper. So it's thicker. It's like a cardstock. I think it's 40 pound, I think 40 pound paper. It's acid free as well, so like over time normal printer paper will yellow with time because it kind of like releases the acids and makes it kind of weird. So this is acid free, bleached, won't turn colors over time, holds up in alcohol well, so you can put this same paper into like your ethanol in here, um, and it won't fall apart. It holds on to uh, like the thermal prints really well to make labels. So it's the same paper we use for labels. I just don't have like a good stash of it at home. So I just cut those points out from the edges, and as you can see here at the top, like between labels. But it's on Amazon, and you can get a full ream of it for like $15, and that's uh it's enough label paper to last you like forever. It is Creature Collective, yes. Might be able to see on there that the little die is a triangle instead of a. So it's very specifically a point punch. Because it is such a specific thing, these are really expensive, like absurdly expensive for what it is. Buying one of these is like 90 bucks probably. I inherited this one. This was a gift. So I did not pay that, but those punches are very expensive. They last a long time. Um, but they are kind of nuts. Like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna spend $100 on a hole punch. That's a crazy sentence to say out loud. Um, so just a thought, how you get the points. Oh god, can you imagine hand cutting them? It'd be awful. Nobody would ever do bugs. Hard enough getting people interested in entomology, let alone making them cut out little tiny triangles. Now, I should have enough points to finish up what we pulled here. Scalpel. Yeah, that's possible. Um, People have looked at doing like laser cutting of points, and I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of quality. Just because the laser still leaves like a little bit of a singe on the paper, and we don't know how that would interact with the paper or the glue or whatever else. So, not something that a lot of people have adopted, but if you want to print a ton of them out at a time, you can like laser cut them. Not something my preferred method. Uh it is a real pain because uh every point that I have to do is by hand. Like this is one every single time. Lyndon, did you have to do that? That's crazy. Hate to say it, but you went to the broke school. So yeah, laser cutting is an option. I don't love it. I have wanted to get a thing that looks like a 3-hole punch, but it just has points all the way down it. So I can just like pull it once and it'll cut like the entire length of the paper for me into points. But it's such a niche, like that's such a niche machine to want to make, and based on the expense for just getting the single one, it would probably cost me like $10,000 to have one. But I've just always thought that was a cool idea. Would be to just like load the paper in, go chink, chink, and cut like thousands at a time. That would be so nice. Because after a while, your hand gets tired. It is not always ideal to sit there and punch uh hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these little points. The thing is, you do it once and you're set for a very long time. Depending on the general size category of things that you work uh of things that you work with. Uh I work with some pretty tiny stuff fairly often. So I don't know what my point count is per year. Um but I do know that one time in grad school I point punched an entire piece of paper. I took the entire paper, a full like 8.5 by 11 sheet of it, and I point punched the entire thing. It took me several hours. It was a real pain. My hand cramped several times doing it. But a full page lasted me like 3 years. But the thing is, you're never just doing it for yourself. Your lab mates come over and they're like, "Oh, hey, could I bum like 10 points?" And over time, 10 points adds up, you know? Somebody's got to do it. But it's annoying when that somebody is me. Especially for like big projects. Um if I'm doing it for my own stuff, like right now, I don't care that I'm having to do these. This was, what did we say, like 15 points? And the only reason that was a pain was because I don't have a full sheet of paper to do that with right now. Doing 15 points on my own for something like my own little project like this is no big deal. But when you're doing identification projects where you have 900 of the same species, or what looks to be the same species, and you need to mount them to tell, 900 points is so many points. Absolutely make a page size punch with it. Hey, if you, chatters, I'm looking at you, if you or anyone you know thinks they would be able to machine a whole page point punch, get in contact. My whispers are open. Find me on Discord. Whatever. That would be a revolutionary. That would be a revolutionary item. But again, very rarely do I need them in bulk, like in that amount that it's a huge deal to go through and do them. It's just like kind of it. Can't just buy them pre-punched. Yeah, well, creature. I think that's what people were trying to get at with the laser cut ones, because there's not really a, you can order pre-punched points, but they're not quite as nice as the hand done ones. And what's the solution there, right? Like, do you hire child labor hire child laborers to point punch all day so you can sell them at like fractions of a penny for the US market? I don't think so. I don't think that would work out super well. Um so then it ends up just being your labor and your time when you need points. And it works out just fine. Um I knew you could combine those whole punches. Yeah, so Yalma, that's what I was thinking. That's always been my idea. Was like having a 3-hole punch length thing, like uh it's a full page length piece of paper, and you just pull down on the thing, and it's got all these dies that punch out a little point every time. But and I was like thinking about that and being like, oh, maybe I could just buy 30 point punches and like weld them together and then like kind of makeshift that on my own. Well, again, if these are $100 and I need a full page worth of it, I need like a couple hundred of these, and I'm not made of money. Die punch sewing machine. Undoing hours on. Y'all are y'all are built different. Uh, I'll do it, and I have done it for hours on end. I don't want to. That's a that's yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that I want to do it. But I have done it, and that's like kind of the point. Demler, that's an interesting thought. I do know people with a cricket. I would have to see. Truthfully, I don't know how those work. But I imagine it would be similar to the laser cutter, but I don't think they use lasers on that, so maybe it would cut them fine. But I don't know. I can just this try cut. Is that how people say it? Oh no. I've I don't know that I've ever said it out loud. I think it is spelled cry cut. I think you're right. I just think it's pronounced differently. Okay, Katie says it like cricket. I want her to say, okay, all right. Some of you are with me, and I'll take it. I'll take some of you being on my side. Okay. I don't really have a great way to show this, but the next step, um, I'm going to pick up there. Here. The next step is I'm going to pick them up like this, so still upside down. I'm gonna flip it over. So now we're right side up. And then I am going to put the pin right here. Now, I can't do it floating like this because it'll bend the point. So I'm just going to do it on the edge of the foam board that I have over here. And then we'll take a look at these once I get through all of them. This is the other portion where people are like not so sold on my idea of doing it this way, of like flipping them over, because this does add like an extra handling step where things in theory could go wrong to like break a leg off or break antenna. So I can see that being a concern for some folks, but I've never had. Okay, it says it like cricket. I knew it was spelled Tricut, but I just always thought it was pronounced. But then again, like I said, I don't know that I've ever actually said it out loud. Like one of those words you only learn by reading. Oh yeah, definitely not a big deal at all. Halfway. It would. I have a super. Hold on. What's Demler got? Yeah, that's fine. So this looks like. Yeah, so this looks like it's for just labels. No, you're good. You're good, Demler. Totally reasonable. So what this is looking at are let me so what this one is looking at is these labels that are getting cut in rectangles. This is going to be the same paper, but it's not quite the same shape. I can see where cutting this would be really easy because it is just like horizontal and vertical cuts. Um, but it's good to know that the thing actually will cut labels. So this is definitely something that we could look into. But yeah, you can see here that these are just straight lines. Um, and truthfully, I wouldn't even really like the y'all see how much there's like so much extra label here. And mine do not look like that. My labels, all of my labels are like super tight together, and every bolded thing is a new label. So they're cut in blocks by like how many I needed for each site, but all of these are the same, and I just cut between them, and you can see like how little white space there is on them. Uh, those ones in that paper, I think, were cut a little bit too big for my preference too. Um, but again, not everybody does everything the same way. Uh, some people will print with like spaces between the lines, but not between the labels, or between the labels, but not between the lines. I print thousands of labels per year. Um, and I think even that extra, like, those little extra bits that don't seem to matter do add up when you're doing everything sort of in bulk like that. Um, but thank you for that link. I'll definitely read into that a little bit more as something to think about. Um, what I was saying right before we went and did that is I think I have a superpower. And unfortunately, uh it's not like super speed or super strength or anything. Um I am really really good at pulling the right number of pins out that I need for the number of specimens that I have. I knew that we had 15 of these things, but I opened a new pack of pins, and so they're all just in here loose like that. They're all in here loose like that. Uh, and I just was like, I grabbed a chunk, and I feel like I'm very tuned in to like what how many pins will feel like. I have I pulled out the exact number of pins that I needed for all of these, and I did not count the pins. And this happens way more than you would expect it to, where it's like, oh yeah, wow, that's lucky I pulled out the right number. This happens so much. And it may be the lamest superpower, but it is very handy for me. Like Flumgoon said. It is honestly really nice for me. So you know what? I'll take it. Uh I'll be here waiting for the Avengers to call next time something happens. Um Tony Stark hit my line, you know? You need something counted real quick. Warp Intel. Ooh. One pin short when I'm so okay. Does it only work for bug pins? Yes. uh actually no. I think it most commonly happens with pins because that's like obviously what I'm working with a lot. And have like a really good sense as to how thick a singular pin of a certain size is. Um, but it happens with points. It also happens with like excess specimens. If I'm like giving stuff to a class to prepare, and I have just like a big bottle that's just full of the same beetle, I'm pretty good at dumping out the correct number. And it might just be like a spatial recognition thing. Um, maybe I'm good at that. I have won uh jelly bean counting contests, like how many things are in the jar. I have won 4 of those in my life. And I think that's like a pretty high number. Maybe I just enter a lot of those. I don't know. But I do have pretty good estimation, I suppose. Um but with the pins it's definitely more of a physical thing because I can tell like roughly how many. I'd get cheese cubes and test it on toothpick. Oh, yeah, that would be helpful. That would be helpful. And the only thing there is like if I'm wrong and I grab out too few, I'm just gonna eat the extra cheese. If I have extra bugs that I didn't pull enough pins out for, I gotta go back because I'm not just gonna get rid of those bugs, but I will just get rid of that cheese. So we are locked and loaded, ready to go. Let's go. Uh, so they're all mounted up. And you can see that there is some wackadoodleness with the legs. They're a little bit askew. Uh, it's fine. It's fine. When I have something big like this, where the size of the label that goes with it is smaller than the actual beetle itself. So, like, this is the label. This is like the label size for this beetle. The limiting factor for how many of these you can get into a box is the size of the beetle, right? So that's when you're worried about legs being crazy and sticking out different ways, and that's when you're also worried about like antennae going out and elytra being open and things like that. But when you have something small, like this little ground beetle that's on a point, your limiting factor is the label space. So I'm not nearly as worried for how the legs on this guy looks, because that's not going to be the thing that prevents me from fitting more in the collection, right? That's the label, and that's why my labels have like no white space on them, because I do often collect pretty tiny things. And so the thing that does limit my space is the label most of the time. I don't know if I would say most, a lot of the time at least. So with the ones that we're looking at now, uh like this guy, his legs are sticking out. Those middle legs are sticking out to the side. Pickle! Just in time, bud. We're just looking at some legs. You know what's at the end of the legs? Toes. Daily dose of Weevil toes, everybody. Look at that. Thank you, Pickle. Stopping by. Very charming streamer. You fading. So nice. And plausible porpoise. Thank you for following. But yeah, so that's, you know, this is very helpful for us right now because we're Gotta show Pickle. Gotta show Pickle the feet. Um, but that's why with these things on points like that are going to be smaller than the label, I'm not worried about how their legs and stuff are sticking out. Now, the fact that the front legs are sort of tucked in on themselves, as you see, now we're underneath. Um, see how this front leg is like tucked up against that bicep, so it's kind of curled in like this. That sometimes makes it tricky to identify things. Sometimes we like need to look at the essentially what would be the inner forearm, or we're looking at this little spine that's here on the end. Things like that can be useful for identification. Um, However, I already know what this is. I'm 100% confident that this is Rhopalotria furfuracea. So I'm not super worried about identifying things either. At least in this particular case. Um, with other things, I will sometimes try to arrange legs in an aesthetically pleasing and also useful way, like for us to be able to identify them with. Um, it doesn't always work, and sometimes I will like um when I'm preparing plates or like I'm doing things that need really nice pictures of things, and I don't really want the point being in the picture because it kind of looks bad. I will take very small things, position them like legs and antennae and everything all organized, let it dry, take the picture, with it like glued on the tiniest bit of the point, and then do like a full point mount on. Just because it's easier to edit out that little tiny piece than it is to do the full thing. Because you can see that like here it touches a lot of the side, which is what we wanted, right? Like I'm complaining about a thing that I did on purpose because now the side of the weevil is supported, but like, you know, having this giant white triangle is not the most aesthetically clean thing if you were trying to take like a really nice picture of this specimen. So it's perfect enough for my purposes at the moment. Here's another one. This is one of the extra double crazies. Um, this one's at a weird angle because I wanted to show off the wings. But again, I'm not worried about like tucking these wings back up and refolding the elytra how they should be. Um, some people are, and some people are really fiddly about it, and that's like a whole thing. Not me, man. I'm good with this. Again, if it was my only one, I was trying to get a good picture of it, I would maybe fuss a little bit more. And certainly with bigger things, I've definitely done this on stream already where I just like shove everything back up under the elytra. But when something is small like this, I would um I would be worried about ripping the wing off or like ripping the elytra or otherwise damaging the beetle. Um so at least in my mind it doesn't look as nice, but this specimen is safer if I'm just to leave it like this than if I were to actually try and make it look um but you can see the elytra open, the wings are out. This is not my ideal evil. Um but something like this which is nice and tucked. All of the elytra are in, the legs are pretty tucked. Nothing is too extreme on this one. This is just like a really nice, very well contained, well behaved weevil specimen. Um, and so what you're seeing here is right now we've got a really nice look at the back, but the head's not in focus. And if I move the scope him up, if I turn the scope so we can see like down here on the antenna and the eyes and stuff on the left hand side, now the top of the beetle is no longer in focus. So I have a couple of things that we could do to deal with that if I wanted a nice picture of this. One, I could zoom out and I can get more of everything in focus. And the further out you go, the kind of better it is you'll have a shot at having everything in focus at one time. Like right now, that all looks pretty good, but it's further away and we don't have as much detail. And yeah, we could take this and crop it down smaller. Um, but it's not ideal. So the thing that we would do is not with this camera because that would be a little bit torturous. Is you have like a stacking system where you tell it like, okay, this is the highest point where there are like here's the highest point where there's something in focus that I want in focus. And then you would move it down and go, okay, here is the lowest point where something that I want in focus is in focus. And the microscope, or the camera system, whatever it is, will cut that and move in like fractional increments. So, yeah, exactly, Alma, to stitch it together. So you set your top and you set the bottom, and then it'll come in and go, okay, I'm going to take a picture here, and then it'll move the camera up a little bit. So now a slightly different thing is in focus. It'll take the picture again. It'll move it up, take the picture again, put up, take the picture again, put up, take the picture again. And then once you stack all of those images, it's called focus stacking. Um, it'll basically pull all of the in focus pieces and build it together. So you can just see it processing. So it goes like, and it's taking each layer, each piece that's in focus, and making one like very in focus image. And it's so nice. It does take a while because the camera system does have to move, and it does also have to take like my example here did like 4 pictures or whatever. It'll do like 80 to 100 pictures sometimes. And so it takes a long time to get all of that done, but once you have it done, you then have like the super high quality, really nice picture that you can blow up really big, zoom in on super close. It's cool. A really cool system. Uh, do that with small metal specimen. Very nice. Um, but yeah, so that's also sometimes I'll move things further out on screen if we're trying to talk about the specimen as a whole. It'll be not as zoomed in. The other complication with stream specifically uh is that the camera that lets me put this on screen for you guys has a very slightly different focal view than I'm seeing through the eyepieces. So when it's on screen and like perfectly crisp for you, I usually can't see what I'm doing. Or I can see like a vague shape of what I'm doing. Um which is why sometimes you'll see me working when it's blurry for you, and I'll move stuff around and be like, "Okay, yeah, this," and then I'll focus it. Um I have not figured out a way to calibrate it yet, Dalma. I've had this scope. We're coming up on a year. I think I got it in like September last year. Um, and I haven't figured out a way to do it. I had a friend that had this for about a year before me, and he still also has to deal with it. So I bet there is some way to do it. I am not tech savvy enough to do that. So it's fun. Most of the time it's all right. Um when we're talking on stream and I have something up, it's usually because I at least have some idea of what I want to say about it and like some idea of what it's going to be. And so I don't necessarily need everything in focus all the time. I'm like, "Oh yeah, like I know this has that character because of what I think it is." So I can focus that for them, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in focus for me. But if I do want to see what's in focus for you, I do have the stream up on my monitor so I can see what you guys are seeing as well. So it doesn't always work. Um, Having to piece together sounds like a lot. It's not creature. Uh, I will select however many photos it takes, put it into a different program, and it does it all for me. It's basically automated. You just have to tell it which pictures to combine, and it'll do it. Um, and the steps, like how far it moves between camera shots, is also automated. So there's like a rail system that you can be like, okay, every tenth of a millimeter, take a picture. So it'll go like, and take all these little itty bitty tiny steps where if I'm trying to do it by hand, there's no way I'm getting the same travel distance every single time. And so one time I might move it down like 3/10 of a millimeter, and sometimes I might only move down 1/10, or then maybe like a full millimeter at a time. And that would cause the whole stack of photos to be blurry because you're trying to incorporate like too much information in some and not enough in another into like one image. Um, that's a work computer thing. Um, I have thought about an imaging system for home, and you can build them for like $1,500, which in the grand scheme of things is not that bad. For in the grand scheme of like camera equipment prices, that's not that bad. That is certainly more than I want to spend on this when I can just use the facilities elsewhere. Um and yeah, it could be a little bit better if the scope was of better quality. Uh, but in terms of cameras that, or in terms of scopes that are really good quality, but also uh, allow me to stream from them, this thing is like thousands of dollars less than your average model from like an actual. This whole thing that I use on stream is like on Amazon for $400, which again, not cheap. I fully recognize that that's like a lot of money for a lot of people. Um, but for a 50 times magnification microscope with optics that are like pretty good and that has a camera I can stream from, there is nothing within that price point. Like there's nothing else that is even close to this. And for like all intents and purposes, It's a nice microscope. Um, it it's not the best one that I've ever used, but for the stuff that I am using it for at home, like rough IDs and sorting uh specimens and things like that, it's great. It's absolutely great. Have you ever worked with or sent bugs for SEM? Yes, I have. We have one of those too. So for SEM, you have to sputter coat things, which is you basically take liquid, usually gold, and you spit it at the specimen so all of its surfaces get covered, and then the SEM picks up on like this metal reflective surface of the bug, and you get this really insane level of detail. Um, so like if you ever see pictures that are like this, pictures like this that are usually black and like this where you have this like extra fine detail and you can see all the hairs and pores and weird face stuff that's going on. This is always SEM or like a scanning electron microscope. And you can retool and recolor certain things. So like this one, um, some of these have color added back into them, but you can see like these itty bitty tiny structures that are 100 micrometers long. Like this is an ant face, and you can see all the individual hairs that are happening here on the face and whatnot. So SEM is like super high level and high resolution imaging, and it's not as prohibitive as it used to be. Um, for a lot of really tiny stuff now, you almost need to describe it with an SEM, because otherwise, normal microscopes can only do so much. Like Cricket's saying, you get limited by physics. Um, those sort like normal light microscopes, like what we're using now, are limited in their capacity of what they can see. Um, and so getting all this like super up close detail is something you can only really do with this. All right. Well, we have wrapped up. Oop, apologize. I do not micro amber. Interesting. I'll check that out, creature. Um, we did amber here last Halloween. Um, I brought some amber specimens home from work, and we looked at them, and that was like still pretty early on in the streaming thing and figuring out how this microscope worked. I do think we're probably going to make that an every year thing because Jurassic Park is like one of my favorite movies of all time, and I dressed up as Dennis Nedry for Halloween last year, so I think we'll probably do that again. Um, but I will definitely check in with. Um, maybe I do know. I at least know of him. He looks very familiar. Hmm, very cool. Yeah, I'll I'll get back with him on this. I'll bring it back at some point. Um, but for now, guess we'll go with some birds. Um, we've wrapped up uh what I was planning for the evening. And I need to eat dinner still. So I think we're going to call it there, chat. I hope you had fun. I always like these sort of trip critter sighting recaps at the beginning. And then we got into some cool bug stuff in the later half. So I think we are going to send it there. Uh, and no other bug folks at the moment, but uh, always a worthy cause of going Purple Martin Conservation. They're still trying to hit partner, and so they need their average view count up. This is a great second monitor back monitor stream, so check that out if you will. Stay and hang out after the raid. Um, Otherwise, we will be back Wednesday night for Alveus chat chats, as regularly scheduled, and we will probably be back here next Monday. All right, y'all. Have a good night. Thanks for hanging out. As always, it was a pleasure, and I will see you next time. Night, everybody. Bye.